Okay, it is Thursday, June 6th, 2019, and welcome to week 10 of Contemporary Issues in Criminal Justice. This is our final lecture for this class for the whole quarter, and so I'm going to cover some details and information. So I'm going to go ahead and get started right away by sharing my screen. Okay. You can see the information about myself, which you know about, and I'm going to scroll all the way down to the rubric for today. So your written assignment is research your personal job and make sure that you have citations in the body and references at the end. It's going to involve the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and then you're going to explain the current job market, and then you're going to have the APA citations and references. That's how many of you have lost points this quarter on written assignments. You lose 5 points. And there are students that ask me, as far as the field report, how do they provide that? I says you provide that by research that you include, by you listing the organization, citations in the body, and references at the end as well as if you interviewed someone, you cite them as the source of the statements that you include, and then put a reference at the end, or references at the end. And then you have the ACAT criminal justice test. Some of you have taken the test, and you want to make sure that you get that test completed because of the fact that I get information from the school as to who has taken the test, and even if a student tells me they took the test and their name is not in the list of students that took the test, then they will not get the 30 points. So if you got the 30 points already, or either if you have provided information that you took the test, then you will get that. So includes when and where you took the test and any feedback, and you get 30 points for that. And then, just because there is no lecture next week, your final report on your field report, and you're going to make sure you complete all the requirements for that. All right. And you can see this is the final lecture of the course, and I will be posting the link at the end here at the end, as I normally do. So now let's go over here, and before we look at the announcements, let's look at the course calendar. And there we go. And you can see right where we are, right here. This is where we are right now. And you can see that your initial post was due on Tuesday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. The lecture today, the reply post due Saturday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then your written assignment will be due Sunday, along with the ACAT. Now, if you don't get the ACAT done by Sunday, you still need to get it done after that. Excuse me. But you want to make sure that you do get it done, because you won't get your 30 points. And then you see next week that the initial post will be due Tuesday, but the final assignments are all due by the 14th. And you can see your reply post, and you can see the assessment, which is the 100 questions. Now, some people get that confused with the ACAT, but they are two different ones. One, the ACAT, you're not graded on how you complete it, but you want to do, do as well as you can. But you are graded on the fieldwork final. There are 100 questions, and then you'll see here, there it is right there again, the assessment, and you'll see too my little note here that the quarter ends. All assignments must be completed by 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time on the 14th. So that's a week from tomorrow. So that you're not confused. It is not going to go to the 15th. It's not going to the 16th. All right. So that's what you should be aware of. All right. So now let's go back to the announcement for the week. Then when you see your announcement next week, by the way, it will tell you about the fact that that the course ends on the 14th as well. So let's take a look at the module. Future of Employment for Criminal Justice, for Justice Studies, Module 10, and I say this in bold print that this is the final lecture of the quarter. And then the Criminal Justice Program Assessment, that'll be due the 14th. I will talk about that a little bit more in detail. I can't go into too much. Then finally, your discussion post, as I talked about that, your prediction. Many of you have already done pretty well with that on your initial post, and your reply post to do Saturday, should I say. And then complete the written assignment, research your personal job. And I'm going to cover that in just a minute. And then the ACAT criminal justice test. All right. Then you know what my motto is all about. So now let's take a look at Module 10. And the assignments. So again, it tells you using the Bureau of Labor Statistics website, and it tells you what to do from there. And you're going to write a paper that's 1 to 2 pages. Make sure you have citations in the body and references at the end, and a cover page, and double space. Then your discussion post, and then your ACAT test. Remember that this is an assessment, and here are all the details of it. And as I said, this exam is different from the final exam program assessment, which you'll take at the end, which I'll go over in just a minute. And points assigned to the final exam. Program assessment will be determined by your score on the test, where you earn points for taking the ACAT by simply completing it. So I always tell students to make sure that you do this. And it says here, a couple of students already ran into this situation. You'll be able to take the test on your own time in an unpracticed setting on your own computer if you have the correct setup. Although you may go to the college campus to take the test on the computer there if you wish. And I already provided you with the additional details about taking the test. All right. At least one student has said that their computer was not able to, and they said they were not able to get off and go to a campus. Well, then maybe you could go to the library. The bottom line is that if your computer doesn't work, you still got to take it. Otherwise, you're going to lose the points. That's something I can't control or change. And then, of course, your live lecture. So now let's take a look at week 11. And let's look at your final field report. and you're going to satisfy the requirements that are done here. All right. In your discussion post. And here's the exam program assessment. It consists of 100 questions. And it's going to basically, it's hard to tell you how to study because it's covering the performance of courses you completed in this program. Now, it tells you too that the score you receive on this assessment is to see how well you've done in the program. So let's say in classes that you've taken, you've done A's and B's. That means you should have attained enough information to be able to do pretty well with these 100 questions. Take your time and effort to complete this exam for a grade that will be reflected in your overall score as an assessment of your learning of the criminal justice program. So I can't really tell you how to prepare because of the fact that you should already have been prepared as you've gone along in your classes that you have taken so far. And some students come back and say to me they were surprised by some of the questions. Well, these are based upon a general assessment of courses that usually are required in order for students to have graduated with an associate's degree, not a bachelor's, an associate's degree. And it'll cover issues in the various courses, such as the ones I've taught you, if you've had Introduction to Criminal Law, Introduction to Corrections, Drugs and Crime, and those are the ones that I've been teaching that you will cover. But there are some other courses along the way that you've taken that I don't teach and haven't been teaching, and so you'll be evaluated on those. For those of you who are in Minnesota, all the courses that you had to take for your post law enforcement qualification, those will be covered in your criminal justice program assessment. So you want to make sure you do take a look at this, okay? So the test is due by 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time on the 14th, all right? And that's all I can tell you about that test. So let's go back to Module 10, and let's talk about the topic for today. We've talked about the ACAT and how that works. So the key thing that, don't worry about the scoring of the ACAT. Just take the ACAT and do the best you possibly can on it, all right? So let's talk about the objectives for this week. Professions within the field of criminal justice. The various professions, as most of you know, the four, some major ones are law enforcement. You have probation, parole, jails, prisons, and other courses that are related to the field that you've taken since you've been here. And you should understand that as you exit the school, that you should be able to supply answers to the questions that are provided in these exams, particularly the one that you take in week 11, because of the fact that, especially in the areas where you are going, especially in the areas where you're going to operate, that you have started deciding what you wanted to do. You should also have learned something through your field report in the area that you wrote your field report in. As I stated from the very beginning of this course 11 weeks ago, do your field report on topics that you're familiar with, or areas where you feel that you want to operate in when you graduate with your associate's degree. We do hope that many of you, when you're associates, that we will see you in the bachelor's program, because as you've learned already, that you can't be a probation officer, you can't be a parole officer without having a bachelor's degree. Law enforcement, police officers, um, and correction officers, those are all changing, even though there's not requirements that are immediately before you that require you to have a bachelor's degree. And you see the movement, as has been stated in some of the videos that you may have seen in classes that you took, like Introduction to Corrections, where we talk about the various fields that people are going into, such as corrections and jails, that because of the litigation and lawsuits that take place quite frequently, and including law enforcement in this statement, that they want to have more professional individuals. And how do you produce more professional individuals? Well, by experience, but also preceding that experience is education. So the more education that you have, the less likely that you will make mistakes that will result in possible litigation. Now, you could do everything right, dot every I and cross every T, and you could still find yourself involved in a lawsuit. But you should be aware that your chances decrease with the more education you have. And then also, as we shared with the principles that we have as transferable skills, being good in those areas, written and oral communication, operating ethically, professionally, especially with the ethics. You will find yourself in a situation sometimes as a professional where you haven't followed the law, or you tried to skirt the law, you tried to hide behind your office or badge, but you did something improper, such as I was looking at something on Google the other day, an article that was a person who was I think they were a lab tech person in criminal justice, and I might have even seen it on Facebook. Anyway, this person was indicted and charged with a crime because they submitted bad DNA evidence, not just messing it up, but knowingly, giving DNA evidence for people that really weren't involved in the cases themselves, or contaminating the DNA. All these kinds of things can result in problems. But when you're operating unethically, like writing a false police report, or either changing the police report to operate on the basis where you may be covering a mistake that you made, or either covering something that your partner may have made in collusion, operating on the basis of this code of silence, you can ultimately find yourself losing your job and or going to prison or jail. And the key thing is that you don't want to find yourself in those situations. And so within the profession, as I said already, ethical, professional, and educated individuals should operate in all aspects of criminal justice, whatever field that you've decided to go into. And so it behooves you from the beginning, and when you started in the program at the school, that you learned something in each course that would prepare you for operating in whatever field that you desire, or fields you desire in justice studies. And so some students all of a sudden realize that, oh, I got to take these assessments at the end to see. You'll see where actually there's information that you should have been not made aware of, which some of it, most of it, about 95, 90, even more, higher than that percentage-wise. I've looked at the test before, that it actually covers things that anybody who's going to be going out into the criminal justice field or operating in justice studies should know. These are foundational things. And so this week, in terms of being able to deal with employment, because of the fact that you're out there, you're going to take these skills that you learn in school and in class and from your assignments, especially, as I said, from your field report. You remember the project that you did in corrections, where you had to interview a person, you had to research an organization, and then you had to also provide some research about the field that you were working in, all for that. Well, all a culmination of helping you to become familiar with the area that you intend on working in. And so we find ourselves at the point where it's time to leave, time to go to work, or it's time to go to work and time to obtain more education so that you can get a better job even in the field of criminal justice. And so that's what this week is all about, discovering the future of employment. You've already discovered from your research that there's going to be a demand for individuals who fit the mode of what I've been talking about before. And only those who have prepared themselves while they're in school will be able to operate on what we call OJT, on-the-job training, and apply the two together and become successful and climb up the ladder. I had one student who was in my criminal justice courses, several of them, and she was already, at the time she came, a corrections officer, but she worked her way while she was in school into the point where she went from a regular corrections officer, lieutenant, to going on and getting her education, and she ultimately climbed to the highest level as a correction officer, which is major, where she is able to sometimes run the facility. And she ran Stateville, which is one of the facilities here in Illinois. Those of you in Illinois know about that. And it's a male facility, by the way. But because of her education and put that together with her years of experience of working in that job, starting at the bottom, she continued to build her plateau by putting knowledge at each level to the point that she was able to reach the plateau of becoming a major. Well, that's the same kind of thing that you're going to do in any field that you find yourself in. And as a matter of fact, that particular student has been a member of my advisory board and continues to be a member of the School of Justice Advisory Board that's online now, to try to let us know as a school what it is we need to be teaching so that students can be successful in operating in the professions that they desire. So we're not just throwing, how should I say, assignments at you just to give you busy work. No, every assignment is a step towards preparing you to be that quintessential professional in the School of Justice field. And I can tell you that budgets are of organizations, counties, municipalities, states, and the federal government determine, how many people in a specific area are able to be employed. But the successful ones are those who have taken the time to get their foot in the door at an early period. And I've talked about this um, throughout this course. Uh, I talked about this in terms of dealing with those field reports, dealing with the course projects that you had in the classes that I had, such as J115, Introduction to Corrections. Well, what you're doing is doing ride-alongs, as some of you have done in this course, to allow law enforcement or whatever areas that you operated in to become familiar with who you are, get to know them. There's one young lady who is in this class. She's doing a ride along and working with a police officer in a town that I used to live in, and that police officer is sharing experiences and information. Now, let's say if that student after graduation decide they want to interview for a position in that particular town in law enforcement, then that person who they interviewed, who they did the ride along with, who they work with, will be able to say, I know this person. They were very professional in how they handled even their assignment in school, and this is a person we need to take a second or third look at. And so what it does is it gives you an introduction and an opportunity to succeed. So that's why I say it's no busy work. We're not just giving you assignments so you can get a grade. We are giving you assignments to prepare you for real world experiences. And so you're going to discover in your research dealing with the statistics and employment how tight it is in each of the fields, dealing specifically with what the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which the Bureau of Labor Statistics is a federal agency that measures the opportunities out there for jobs in your respective fields, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's corrections, whether it's probation, where it's jails, prisons, or even those individuals who want to be criminal lawyers, prosecutors, defense attorneys. Someone asked me about becoming a judge. I said, in order to become a judge, first of all, you have to become a lawyer first. I don't know of any judges that are not lawyers and have not been lawyers. They have to become attorneys first. And so my point being is that in the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, it will provide you with a bird's eye view of what to expect in there. Now, let me say this to you up front. You're going to find that there are scarce resources, but remember, only those who are successful in school, who achieve success by getting good grades, are able to demonstrate to employers that they have some discipline, that they know how to follow instructions. And speaking of that, students, that is why I'm so fixed on, I tell you over and over and over, pay attention to the rubrics, because these are directions that tell you what my expectations are in the assignment. And what they do is they also demonstrate not only that you did the assignment right, but that you also know how to follow the processes and procedures of what are expected of you in order to get the highest possible grade. You transfer that over into when you have assignments that are given to you in your employment positions, and you're going to have the same situation. No, you won't get a grade, but what it is you may get promotions. You may get demotions if you're not doing what you think you should know how to do. Even if your grades are good in school and you don't know how to apply those things in a practical sense, how they are in the real world, which again, as I said, are internships that students get, externships, even jobs that you have, you begin to climb up the ladder. I told you about my story about I wanted to be a lawyer, so I ended up going into the lowest position that I could get in the law firm, which was a messenger, and paying attention to what was going on. And as you learn, I went from a messenger then to a file clerk, then I learned how to be a law librarian, and then what is called a paralegal. I learned how to do legal research on my job at that time, and then by that time I graduated and went to law school. So I taught myself how to do these things, preparing myself for my future of becoming an attorney. Well, that's the same thing that you have to do yourself. Now, you might say, well, Professor, you keep repeating it. Nope, I'm not repeating it. I'm sharing with you the different approaches and techniques that you have. Now, those same opportunities are also open to you by completing these reports that you do, field reports, ride-alongs, and others in an excellent professional manner. We even tell you in the instructions of the assignment that you are go as if you are applying for a position, even though you're still in school. The point of the matter is that you're putting your best foot forward. And so, yeah, I don't know if the audio is fading in and out. It has something to do with the internet, because my microphone is operating as clear. There's nothing I can do on it. It has to do with bandwidth and things like that. So as a matter of fact, right now, it says I don't have internet access. So I don't know what's going on. Let me check something here. Let me see why I don't. Okay. No, I'm connected. It says no internet access. Okay, let me see if I can fix that. While I got you here, just hold on. Let's troubleshoot. See what's going on here. See if we can fix something. Okay. Let's see. Okay. It says I do have internet access now with my AT&T where I have at home. So everything should be pretty clear by now. But as I said, it fades in and it fades out based on the fact that I'm connected also to the school hookup as well. So anyway, I don't have any control over that. So anyway, so my point is very clear, is that as we conclude this, that we talk about now about the outlook for criminal justice, for justice studies. I am, as I said in my comments to many of you in my posts, in my own post, that I'm optimistic that individuals are being prepared. And then I also see the opportunity as to technology, which is one of the assignments that you had to deal with. And some students have taken a position to feel like technology may replace, for example, law enforcement and individuals doing other things. I don't see it that way. I don't see that like the Jetsons. Some of you may know that show. It's an older show where robots. No, but what happens is robots enhance the ability of law enforcement or other justice studies careers to be done in a more professional fashion. For example, dealing with the video cameras, dealing with body cams, dealing with DNA. As I said before, the greatest revolutionary addition to justice studies and to criminal justice has been DNA, because DNA in the scientific world has made it possible to nail individuals who have committed offenses. It also has helped individuals to verify who a person is. And as you already know, it can connect you with who your families are. But you know that my wife is doing the DNA Ancestry.com. So the point of the matter is that DNA has exonerated some individuals who couldn't possibly have been the ones who committed a crime because their DNA was not present. And a lot of people don't realize DNA doesn't just come from the saliva or either from the waste in your body. It comes also from your skin. Did you not know shedding your skin, even the hair on your body, also hair on all parts of your body can determine DNA. So there are all kinds of little simple things. There have been instances where individuals have attempted to rape someone and the victim had some of their skin or hair in the struggle under their fingernails or on their clothing or on their body, where someone tried to move someone and transport them after a crime, and going through the vehicle and going through it meticulously and collecting some of the most minor of things that individuals are found are able to be arrested on. I can tell you one. We had a crime here in Illinois years ago. It was called the Brown's Chicken Massacre. If you could Google it, the Brown Chicken Massacre in Illinois. And what had happened is that these guys came in at closing at a Brown's Chicken in a town called Palatine, which is the north suburb of Chicago. And anyway, long story short, is that the individuals, they had a hard time trying to determine who committed the crime, where it was a combination of someone sharing some details that led to individuals being arrested. But you know what really nailed them was that some of them, the two individuals who committed the crime, at least one of them I know for sure, ate some of the chicken. And when the crime scene was investigated years before the crime was solved, that chicken contained the DNA and matched up with one of the individuals who had been doing a little talking. And when they matched that chicken up with their DNA, that was it. That was it. And so this is how technology has helped us. As you know, there are now these robots they sent in terms of dealing with the bombs. And instead of risking human life, the robots are actually carry the bombs and take those bombs to a safe place. So there's a whole variety of things that you face when it comes to justice studies. And so my belief is that individuals, together with their education, opportunities, along with their pre-employment opportunities, such as conducting reports while you're in school, such as dealing with internships, dealing with externships, and observing how things work, you learn. One student I know in this class, she did the same thing I did years ago. And I didn't know that I was going to end up becoming a police officer later. But when I was in high school, I was what they call a police explorer. And I used to go to the police station, and I used to see the lockup. I used to learn some things just from when I was in high school, seeing how things operate there. They had these what they call cadets, and these weren't people who were trying to become police officers. It was just like a Boy Scouts, and those things ultimately piqued the interest of some of you, and I know at least one of you in this class, about becoming a police officer and those kind of things. So again, I'm back to the point that so all the experiences, exposure, talking to people, asking questions, learning about it, reading about it, doing research in about something that you're not even thinking about even working toward, that will help. And that's what I did when I became a police officer and investigator in '89 and '93. I wasn't trying to be a police officer. I was trying to be a prosecutor and village attorney in a town, but it was so tough. I said I needed to carry a gun, and they said only police officers can do that. And if you go to the academy, so guess what? Yours truly went to the academy. I did not know, though, that those 4 years of experience would also be something that would benefit me later when I started teaching, because my goal wasn't teaching at that time. My goal was to be a lawyer, and what I was then. But I learned those pieces. So now that I'm a professional in terms of professor, sharing my experiences, those things all enhance my ability to be able to share and teach you guys with hands-on, which brings me to the point that most of your professors that you've had here, instructors, are adjunct professors, which means that they're working in the field at the present time, or they're full-time professors who have worked in the field, or maybe even continue to work in the field. But then you'll have people like myself who are retired professionals in the field. I've never worked as a corrections officer, but I've worked with a lot of corrections officers in my years. Probation officer, I never was one, but I work with many probation officers. I work with parole officers. I work with many counselors and psychologists and so forth, and all of those things. So when we started to talk about these things, those were parts of, remember we started talking about transferable skills, working in teams. So I worked with those individuals in my respective capacity to either deal with cases or to perform a service for a client or for whoever I was working for at that time, whether I was a police officer, investigator, whether I was prosecuting, or whether I was defending, one or the other. And so the bottom line is that you put all those together, and you have people like myself who are able to give you not just what's in the book, but we can share with you how those things work in real life based on giving you our practical experiences as individuals as to how things really work in the real world in the various fields that you decide to go into. So you get what we call hands-on knowledge, first-hand knowledge from experts in the field that you desire to go into. And like I said, I call upon my corrections students, those who are working in corrections and jails and law enforcement, to come in and provide guidance in our advisory board, so that we are, again, back to what I said earlier, providing information that's not busy work, but that will help you to be successful in whatever area you decide to go into the School of Justice Studies. So I'm optimistic that we are preparing you guys, that the objectives that we intend to provide each week give you one more notch, put you closer to being able to be what we call an educated, professional, and ethical criminal justice individual. And so I'm going to terminate this session. It's about 9:15, and I'm going to give you a phrase that I want you to use to get the grade this week. And it's right here, and it's something I've talked about dealing with evaluations, and it's simply ACAT. That's it. That's how you get your points. Provide that to me by Sunday, 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time, and you'll get 5 points, and you know how it works from there. So, any questions? Okay. The one thing I do want to say, again, I wish you all the best. I'm sure you all will be successful. I have many students who, along the way, after finishing this class, I will run into them in the bachelor's program that I work in over there as well. And I also have students who have performed well with me in the courses on the way to their associates who have performed well, and they will reach out to me after the course is over, and they will ask me if I would write a letter of recommendation. I've even been interviewed by prospective employers for students who've been in these classes, and I'm happy to do so. But the ones that do that are those who know that I know that they've worked hard and performed very well in this. So what I'm saying is I'm going to continue to be a resource even after this to be able to help you in any time you need a referral. Maybe one day you want to start teaching in an area in criminal justice, then you can reach out to me and I can, address how you operated as a student in terms of your assignments. And trust me, I remember. That's why when most of you guys, we had the first week and we had the assignment in the student lounge to tell who we were. Many of you who saw the same thing that students put, they said, oh yeah, I had Professor Wright in 2 classes or 3 classes. And, I think, let's see, Sharon, I think you've had me in 2 other classes too, haven't you? Haven't you had me at least in 2 other classes? Yep. And so, I recognize when I see students in my other classes coming forth, I'm glad to see them, and particularly my students who performed very well. I'm not saying that all your grades were 100, but at least learning. But I'll tell you this again in conclusion. It is so important that you understand why we drum APA into you. It is so important because it deals with the ethical aspects, the professional aspects, and dealing with the ethical aspects is that you're providing credit for sources that you use to prepare your assignments, not just in school, but assignments you're going to do for your employer. And you're also using your critical thinking in your assignments, because then what you're doing is providing not just what you discovered from your research, but your analysis and application, your problem-solving skills. And boy, you know how valuable those are in criminal justice and other fields, but I speak in terms of experience in criminal justice in all aspects. Problem-solving, you're going to have to sometimes not be able to reach someone, and you're going to have to figure out a way to get the job done in the best possible fashion. And that's called applying your opening that brain up and let the information out. So I'm going to say good night to you guys. And again, any questions, feel free to reach out to me. You know the rule. And again, and whatever you do, do not reach out to me and say, I can't get my assignments completed by Friday. What am I going to do? I'm not going to tell you what to do. There is a procedure, but I'm not going to discuss it because I'm not supposed to discuss it. But what I do encourage you is continue. As I say in my announcements at the end of every one of them, and I'm putting it up for you so you'll see it as I finish my last statement. Let's see. I say this, and you've seen it all the way. Let's continue to be strong and finish strong. Finish strong. That's the point that I want to leave you with. So with that, I'm going to say good night and thank you for coming out again, and have a good one. Enjoy your break. So good night.